This morning. So we are, guys, 11 weeks into the year. Congratulations, you have made it this far. If you are tracking your year based on if you're tracking your year based on like the work year left versus the calendar year left, we're about 23% through the work year, 11 out of 48. So congratulations, you're almost a fourth through the work year. So that is good. As you are thinking about gratitude shout outs that you want to share this morning, go ahead and put your hand up if there's somebody that you want to shout out or some gratitude that you want to share this morning to get started. I'm going to share mine real quick. I want to give a shout out to Caden in Austin. He signed a $1.2 million listing from calling his sphere during launch. He hadn't talked to this woman since freshman year of high school, college, not high school. He reconnected with her during doing sphere dials. He's like 10 weeks into his career. And then shout out to Jonathan in Austin. He penned it a 475 this week from open houses. Ciamara in Austin signed a $300,000 listing from Brivity Leads. And also a 500,000 listing from expired and withdrawns. So I was like, holy crap, this is pretty good. And then our director of operations referred a 550 listing to the team. So all of that is all working. Joseph, who you shouting out, or what gratitude do you have, sir?
There we go. There's the unmute button. I, along the same lines of what you were saying, is just want to shout out the new agents really getting after it, bringing a lot of energy to the office, and you can really feel the momentum. So that's awesome, awesome, awesome. And then, the experienced agents really kicking it in. I know, Akash, Andrea, John, everybody. It's awesome to see the team with a lot of momentum. So wanted to shout out everybody. I know last week I meant to do it, but I didn't get my hand up quickly enough. But Louisa as well, seeing her momentum has been really awesome. So I wanted to shout her out, as well as Charlie, and then of course Fatima with all of her builder, and then her listing that came up recently. So yeah, just overall shouting out the team. Grateful to be part of the energy.
Right on, right on. I love that. It's funny, when Jay and I were talking earlier on the Carolinas Power Up, someone had asked, like what's the secret to like keeping a team together, or I don't know how he voiced that question, but to your point, Joseph, it is productivity. When people are productive and they're making money, everybody's happy, right? So yeah, shout out to everyone. Great job, guys. Great job. Any other shout outs? Speak now or forever hold your peace. I promise nobody's getting married today. Not today. We'll leave that for another day. I've got some announcements for you guys. Number one announcement, Debbie DeGroat does a coaching session on a specific topic every Friday, right after the Chris call. She was Ben's coach that took him big time. So if there's any part of you who wants to go big time or wants to be better, this week's topic is networking like a pro. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat box. Networking like a pro. So if you're interested in that, cool beans, there you go. Number two announcement, if you are in Austin this coming Monday, we're hosting a financials class. It's being put on by one of our favorite financial planners. The topic is how to file taxes as a self-employed individual and how to maximize everything for tax time. And so if that would add value to your life, just send me an email, Adelina@place, and we'll get you in there. It's from 12 to 1. Lunch is provided. It's in Austin, open to all. And then the third announcement is there is no call next week. We're not going to have a Texas Power Up call because we have call night. And so it makes for a very long day. And the following after that, we have Brian Guberman, Nick. So we, again, Debbie DeGroat this Friday. It's in the chat box if you want to jump on Networking Like a Pro. Next Monday, 12 to 1, there is a financials class of how to file taxes as self-employed individual from 12 to 1 in Austin if you want. No call next week with call night. Week after that, Brian Gubernick. Cool? Okay, we feel good. This morning, Jay White, one of my favorite humans, he is here chatting with us. He is from Charlotte, North Carolina. Um, Jay, welcome, welcome. I'm
Thanks
gonna
for
make
having me.
you, yeah, I'll make you co-host. Here, I'll even spotlight you. There we go. Oh my goodness.
See, I don't know how to do that. Your Zoom skills are way beyond mine.
Oh man, it's I'm probably like a year younger than you. That's probably the whole reason.
That's it.
Very cool. Jay and I have known each other for a while, guys. We were much younger, even a little bit skinnier back then. And here we are. Here we are today. He's in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Have you always been in Charlotte? Did you grow up there?
So I was born in Charlotte, but I grew up in Atlanta.
Okay.
And then so I played basketball in college for 3 practices, cracked my kneecap, and my parents were like, "Hey, so here's the deal. We don't think we're going to pay out of state tuition for Georgia Southern University. So you can move anywhere you want to back in the state of North Carolina to public school." So I finished at Appalachian State, and everybody from App ends up going to Charlotte. So that's how
I
I ended
got
up back here.
I gotcha. Do you have kids?
Yeah, I've got a daughter. She's 22. She's graduating from Clemson this semester.
Whoa. Okay. Wow, you're older than I thought then. Jeez. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah, I'll be 47 in October.
How about that? Well, that is very, very cool. And you're married? Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You had a date night the other night and you're like, he's very I appreciated that you protected your time blocks. You're like, I'm getting ready to go on a date with my wife. We can chat tomorrow. And I was like, good man right there.
Yeah, I learned that from you.
So before we jump into Jay's success, as a real estate agent, he's helped probably right around 700 people in his career. Just him personally, obviously his team, does even more than that. But kind of let's set up the call, Jay. How long have you been in real estate? Like, what'd you do before? Like, is this all you've ever done, or did you make a career change? And if you did, why?
Yeah, this is funny because I didn't know this about you. So I was in college my senior year and decided that I didn't want to finish because I was seeing people make a bunch of money in finance and insurance in the automobile industry, which is what my dad did for a career. And I was like, man, I did an internship and they're like, "Hey, when you get out of school, great news, we can pay you like $35,000 a year." And I'm like, "Okay, so here's the deal. I'm interested in making a lot more than that." So I quit college 8 weeks before I graduated and
Oh my gosh. I did
yeah,
not know that about you.
yeah. And so did not end up going back and finishing because I was like, as I got older in college and I saw some of the professors, I was like, this is a joke. And here's the deal, like full disclosure, my daughter's in college. I think it's super important for people to get educated and if I had to do it over, I would have finished and then chased. But I lost a bunch of credits when I transferred. And so it put me like a year and a half. So I was a 6-year student making pretty good grades, but I had lost so many credits. I was frustrated and I was in school too long and I just decided to get out. So I got into finance and insurance at 25 years old. My general sales manager walked out and I was running a Honda dealership the next week.
Wow.
So I was 25 years old running a Honda dealership way over my skis. And what I hated about that business is everybody that walked through the door just assumed I was a criminal.
Ooh.
Right? Like you hear a lot of bad things about the car business. And it's interesting because you hear a lot of bad things about real estate too, but it's significantly worse in the car business. And it was one of those things where every day felt the same. I was behind a desk or in a cubicle. And I have high functioning, but ADHD. And so it got boring really fast for me. So I got my dog, hitched up my boat, and moved back to Charlotte and said,
Okay.
so I said, "Hey, Dad," my dad had just gotten his real estate license. And he's like, so I literally called him and I was like, "Hey, I'm moving home." He goes, "When?" And I was like, "I'll be there in 3 hours."
Wow.
So he said, "Well, what are you going to do?" And I said, I probably start applying for jobs in advertising and public relations, which is what I was studying when I was working in college to get my degree. And he said, "Well, while you're doing that, why don't you get your real estate license and you can help me with my marketing?" I was like, "Cool." And so that was kind of that was what happened. That's what got me into the real estate business.
Man. Okay, so how do you transition that to like a really full career now? Like, right, you've personally helped, just hundreds of people, right? Other than, I guess, your sphere, like, how did you build your business? Maybe even like in the first few years, like, what did
Yeah.
that look like? Because it
So
sounds
I
like you're just
started,
winning that life at this point.
yeah, right. Like, so no struggles whatsoever. Right.
Oh,
So my dad knew a lot of people, and I knew quite a few people because a lot of my college, like fraternity brothers and friends, were moving back to Charlotte. But I was out of the city for 3 or 4 years, and so a lot of them ended up buying their first place while I was out of town before I got into real estate. So I kind of moved back, and I was in this weird in between world where I was in my late 20s. A lot of those people had already bought something, a small townhome or a condo or something. And so like my sphere really wasn't producing right away. So I joined Coldwell Banker when I first got into real estate, and they had this like 8-week training class that was like going to get you producing. And so I think 1 week we learned open houses, 1 week we learned expireds, 1 week we learned for sale by owners. And like I was the dude that literally was doing all of it. Like, it's funny, like we got a little sticker on the board, and I'm like Mr. Competitive. Like I hate my dad has this saying about me and my brother and my sister. Like I have to win, my brother has to be right, and my sister just wants everybody to get along. Like that's our profiles or
yeah.
mentalities or whatever. Yeah. So like if we're keeping score, like I'm gonna win. I don't give in, kind of thing. So like I'm the dude that literally I'm getting stickers every week. Like I'm the guy doing all the work. And so I learned how to do open houses. I learned how to call. We didn't call expireds back then, right? There wasn't like, Red X or Mojo or anything like that. So literally we were going to expired listings every morning and knocking on their doors.
I was gonna say it was door knocking, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Um, Yeah, and I had the police called on me a couple of times. It was fun. Like I was like, "What? What?" Um, for sale by owners was the same way. Like you went and knocked on doors. Like you could find them online, but then you went and knocked on doors because you couldn't find phone numbers for them. I guess you probably could have looked in the phone book, but you didn't know. Anyway, we knocked on doors. But for me, it was calling Sphere and hosting a bunch of open houses. That was the secret sauce for me. I did learn how to do those things in the car business. So what I learned about me is I was really, really good with scripts.
okay.
Like I could memorize them really quickly. I could turn them into mine, and I became really scripted. I was very comfortable, whether it was a for sale by owner or an expired listing, a sphere call, um, I loved sitting down at a listing appointment because to me it felt like being back in the car business, and I was like, okay, this is when I'm really good,
Mhm.
and so I really got good with listing appointments. That was my thing.
When you were doing these open houses, like, are we talking like one every other week, or like kind of like what did you have
No,
students back then?
yeah. So if back then, again, it's so old school. Like we didn't think we could do open houses at anybody else's open house. We thought we had to have a listing to have an open house.
Oh yeah,
And
100%.
so if I got a listing, man, it was like an open house almost every day. Anytime I could host an open house, we were having an open house. And it's funny, I was on a Zoom with Bob Stewart and Fred Said a couple of weeks ago, and Bob asked the question, if I had to go get a pending contract from scratch in a week, what would I do? And I was like, my first answer was I'd hold something open every day. And then I would make my calls from the open house, because I believe that an open house at least gives me a storefront that somebody might happen to walk into while I'm doing my other things.
Yep. Okay, I love that. When you were, like, obviously you liked listing appointments. How are you getting those listing appointments? Like, did you have success with expireds and for sale by owners, or not so much, or were they all scared?
No, I had a lot of success with them because literally at 7:30 in the morning, I would knock on their door with a package and be like, "Hi, your home just expired off the listing at midnight last night." So I would stay up, right? And at
Oh my
midnight,
God. Okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, you talk about like the one thing that's created success for me is burning the boats. right? Like I had no backup plan. I was going to make this be successful. I was dating Stephanie. I wanted to get married. I wanted this life, and I was willing to do, really whatever it took to get that. So I
So
would
you
stay up.
stay up.
I would stay up after, as soon as it hit like 12:01 and things would go expired, I would make my packages and then go to bed.
Okay.
Right. So then I would go at 7:30. I would go to my first, like whichever one I really wanted the most, I would go to that listing at 7:30. And then I'd try to go to the next one by 8 o'clock if I didn't get that listing appointment.
What would you tell them?
Hey, your home just expired off the market and I'm here to help.
Okay. That sounds a little like, I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Like, was anybody creeped out by that? Like you just
Yeah. Like I said, somebody called the police on me.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And if they weren't there, I would leave the package. Or if they didn't answer the phone, I would leave the package. And I got a lot of callbacks from that too.
okay, let's fast forward to like today. If you were doing, if expireds or withdrawals or canceled or for sale by owners, any of that was on your lead gen lever, what would it look like today? Because now obviously we have a little bit of technology. Nobody has to stay up till 12:01 a.m. to like make their list. What would it look like today?
Well, so I left Cole Banker in 2010.
Yeah.
Changed over to Keller Williams, took my first bold class and learned that you could actually, by then cell phones had changed, information was out there. And so when I took my first bold class, I think they gave us Land Voice or Red X or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wait, you can call these. And so, there's a guy in my office, Thomas Elrod, and he and I took bold together for the first time. And literally I was like, hey man, I want to do this. I know you want to do this. Can we just be accountability partners and do this together? So we were literally doing bold 100s every single day. Like we were calling 100 people every day. And it was back when the market was trash. It was terrible. So there were literally hundreds of expires every day. And so he would start at the top of the list and I would start at the bottom of the list and we'd meet somewhere in the middle.
Right on. What was in a typical package that you would give someone, or what would you give someone today, like in a expired FSBO package?
It's interesting. I'm trying to remember. It was obviously like some marketing materials on how we would market the home. It was a letter. So it's funny. This is going to sound horrible. I typed up what looked like a newspaper or magazine article about how my team was having success with people that had expired off the market. And we had this thing where you could call a 1-800 number and get a recorded piece of information. Right. And so I also learned that if it was printed out on a piece of paper, it looked too new. So I printed it out and then tore it so that it looked like I tore it out of a magazine, and then photocopied it. So it literally looked like somebody had torn it out of a magazine. It had black all around it.
Oh my God.
And I was like, hey, if you'd like to learn more about us, here's a a recent article that was written about us. And I didn't say I didn't tell people I wrote it. But so I put that in there, and a lot of the callbacks were people that had called the 1-800 number, and then I could call and say, do you like how we capture leads? Because this is the things that we do that nobody else does. And it got people's attention because back then a lot of people had trouble selling.
Yeah. You talk about the market. It was trash. Like how trash was it back then?
I mean, people were losing 1% a month in value on average. Like it was, I mean, you remember those days. It was literally you'd go into a neighborhood and a fifth of the neighborhood, 20% of the neighborhood would be on the market. And a lot of them would be underwater. They'd owe more than the house was worth, or it would be a foreclosure or something like that.
Yeah, a good listing appointment back then is you walk in and you tell them, well, to sell this house, it's going to take $40,000. You're going to have to bring $40,000 to the table, and they said okay, because they had $40,000. That was a good listing appointment. That
was a good one. The rest of them were like, we can't do anything, and I'm like, cool. We need to talk about short sale or foreclosure.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays you walk in and you're like, well, we can sell your house for $250,000 more than you bought it. And they're like, oh, that's not enough. Right. So it's just, yeah, definitely different.
People are just praying to get out of their house without crushing their credit.
Yep. Well, I mean, a lot's changed in the last 18 years. But not everything, right? Like,
no, the fundamentals are the same, man. Like if I had to start over from today, I
Okay.
would call I would call expired. So, and it's different for me now because I have a big sphere and past client base, and I would spend a lot more time in that.
Right.
But if I was starting from scratch, if I was a new agent and didn't
Yeah,
have,
like if you were moving to Austin,
if I
Texas,
moved to Austin, right?
yeah,
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 yeah.
and you didn't know people, what would you be doing? That's my question.
First thing is I would join a highly productive team. Like I
Okay.
think that has changed in our industry in the last 20 years. They didn't have teams. There was 0 teams at Coldwell Banker when I was there, and there was 3 or 4 when I moved to Keller Williams in 2010.
Okay.
Right now, there's probably 40 in our market center of 500 plus.
Yeah.
And so that's just changed. And I recognize that by attaching myself, like, you know, you and I were talking about this an hour ago. Um, the one thing that joining a highly productive team would have done is change my ramp time. Like it took me a long time to get to where I could do a deal a month consistently. And then the time it took for me to get from 0 to 12 was probably a couple of years. And
Yeah.
then from 12 to 50 was probably another couple of years. Like it was, that ramp time was significantly less for what it accomplished because I already had foundationally, I knew what to do now. It was just
Yep.
repeat at that point.
Yep. So you join a team. What else would you do?
I'd be like, Adelina, who's got the best listings? I want to go host the best listings open as often as I can host them. I'll put signs up, a bunch of signs up. I want to make sure that they're on the internet, and I'll spend my time in those open houses calling expireds because those people have already raised their hand and already hired a real estate agent. To me, that's, I don't want to say easy, but they're highly motivated, generally speaking.
That makes sense. How many people would you say you'd have to talk to in order to succeed, right? And like, how would you build skill, and how many people would you be talking to, like if you were restarting this business somewhere else?
Yeah, Bold taught me that if I talk to 100 people, I could hit my goals pretty quick.
Okay.
Right. So my goal was 100 people a day.
Okay.
Like, and I know for some of you guys that probably sounds insane. But man, I was trying to pay off debt and get married. That was my thing. And so I was I was seriously motivated to go get that.
Okay. I hear you. At what point in your career did you decide, I love selling houses, but I want a team? Like, what was that journey like? What transpired during that time?
For me, the genesis of the team was I tolerated buyers.
Okay.
Um, I liked listings because I could walk in and have a deal.
Okay.
Right? Like I knew I would walk in and go to the listing appointment and sit down, and I knew I had something I could sell. And so for me, having a listing means I was not unemployed. I had merchandise that was out there on the market, right? And so for me, it was just going, hey, how many listings can I get so that I'm always working, right? It was, I looked at that, and you know, Warren Buffett says if you're not making he talks about passive income in terms of like if you're not making money overnight, then you're constantly having to make money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for me, having listings was like, okay, cool, I can make money overnight because other people would sell them. If I had a buyer, I had to physically go show them houses and sell them that house.
That's
And
fair.
so I tolerated buyers. It's not that I'm not the buyers are liars guy. Like I'm not that, but I recognize that I could work, like I would carry 25 or 30 listings, and I know that I couldn't work with 25 or 30 buyers at one time.
Okay. So like, I guess then my question follow up to that is like, how many listings being held at a time would you have felt comfortable making that change? Like, okay, I'm gonna start a team because I'm carrying this many listings. What did that look like?
It was more of a, I didn't have time to work with buyers because I was going on enough listing appointments. And
Okay.
so my dad had gotten into real estate, and I was like, hey man, my dad's a super high I personality and I'm a super high D personality. And I was like, hey, you really enjoy working with buyers and you're in a different season in life. And so would you want to work with the buyers if I worked with listings?
Okay.
And so, you know, it's kind of funny. It was kind of put together like your first team was put together where it wasn't based on productivity. It wasn't a great financial decision and relationship for me. And I ended up having to do a takeaway with my dad later on that I regret the way that happened. but it was one of those things where I was like, hey, we're splitting top line revenue. I'm paying all the expenses and I'm doing 75% of the business. But it was what I needed to do at the time.
I hear you. I hear you. Um, I know you guys' business is up in North Carolina. What are some ways that your agents are winning out there right now? What's happening?
Um, I think, the agents who are putting in the work are winning.
Okay.
The agents who are going, I recognize I'm having to do more activities because the market is more competitive because, we talk about a shifting market, and I think a lot of people confuse the idea of shifting market, meaning that sellers are losing money. But what Gary Keller defines a shifting market is there's less income per agent.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's important for us to remember and recognize. And so right now there's less income per agent because you've had this 3, 4, 5 years of agents getting into the business. And now all of a sudden we have less transactions than we had. And frankly, we're having compression on commission and other things. So now all of a sudden you've got less commission dollars per agent available, and it's become more competitive. So if you're not working harder, harder is not the right word. If you're not working more efficiently,
Okay.
then you're not winning, right? You have to be making calls and saying the right things and have enough people to say the right things to, and know when to say them. And so there's a skill set and a hustle set that has to go together right now.
Skill set and hustle right now are winning.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say you're a disciplined person?
No, I am not a disciplined person. I'm,
Okay, then riddle me this. How do you get 20 listings at a time or 10 listings at a time, for goodness sakes, if you're not a disciplined person?
so I think,
Because that sounds like you'd
I
have to be really disciplined.
here's what I don't mind. I don't mind working hard.
Okay.
Right. And so I don't equate working hard and discipline as the same thing. For me, at least the way I define discipline is probably organized, structured, some things like that. And that's not who I am, but driven is absolutely what I am. Right. So I think for me, as soon as I started getting listings, I called my little sister who had just been laid off from her job and was like, hey, I need some administrative help. And she was living in Charleston, South Carolina. And she's like, okay, tell me what you need. And she was in public relations in the mining and mineral industry. And she held investor meetings. Like, she's super organized. She's amazing, outgoing personality, not scared to talk to people. And she had just had a baby. So for her, working part-time from home was like a win.
Mm-hmm.
So I hired her to be my first assistant, and she handled all of the administrative stuff so that I could just go get listings.
So you figured out that listings were going to be your lane, and then you just went to town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you stayed in the fast lane. Not that you couldn't do admin and PR and advertising and marketing, but they were slower lanes than what you wanted to be in. And you stayed in the listing lane.
Yeah, it's kind of that, ADHD can work for you and against you in a way.
Okay.
And anything that I get super passionate about, I can absolutely go all in on that. Like,
Okay.
generally speaking, if I'm interested and my wife says, hey, dude, slow down. Like, I said, hey, I want to do triathlon. So I played basketball up until COVID. And then when that stopped, I got my bike out that I probably hadn't ridden in 7 or 8 years. And a couple months later, I'm like, let's go do an Ironman kind of thing. So just how I'm a freak.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. As you wrap us up, like what's some advice that you want to give us? I mean, you've done a lot, and I realize it's so hard because like over the course of a career, like let's say somebody sells 500, 600, 700, 1,000 clients over the course of, say a 18, 20-year career, it's impressive. By the way, that's like 40, 50 a year. Like show me people, like just look around your offices, show me people who sell 30, 40, 50 a year every year for 20 years. That is impressive, guys. And I know like it's hard because like we've just done it over and over and over again, but But that's a lot of clientele that you've helped, and for all your ADHD stuff, you've been really freaking successful. Um, what would you share with us?
Yeah. I got told this when I first got into real estate, and I never really understood it. Um, the poorest people in real estate are the ones that sell it.
Oh,
And we should be we should be taking everything that we're learning and all the money that we're making and building our portfolios in the thing that we know, which is real estate. Um, it took me a little while to get there. So I bought my first investment property in 2010. I've got a, about $2 or $3 million in real estate now. And I think that's, it's starting to snowball a little bit. And I think that's important for us to recognize is we make a lot of people a lot of money, and you should be making that for you too. I think that's the one thing I wish I'd have known earlier, or been able to wrap my head around, or do a little bit earlier. Because as I've done that, I've used Ben's Win Make Give wealth tracker for a while now. And it's been fun doing that with my wife and seeing us go from literally a negative number to having a pretty decent net worth in relatively short period of time.
you know, I want to pause for a second because you said the poorest people are the ones who only sell real estate, right? Um, and we take a lot of pride in selling real estate and helping a lot of people, which is really awesome. And the difference between us building wealth and just selling real estate is really the intentionality behind it, because all of us can use our commission towards being able to purchase, right? Like there's so many ways that we can actually buy a house every year or two just by being intentional. And I think about our director of operations, she's buying her fifth house, right? This is somebody on salary, y'all. Fifth house in like 3 years, right? Um,
See, that's discipline to me.
that it's just, I mean, we could call it discipline. She probably is disciplined. I think she's more disciplined than me for sure, but she's intentional. She's intentional, right? And it's the difference between getting what you want and then settling for what you get is your intentionality behind it. And I think for you, you struggle with ADHD, and like I know you, I've known you for 20 years almost now, and it's that's cool. Like it's awesome, right? And like you're like, great, like I'm going to be intentional about XYZ. And then you just go do it. So what's your intentionality behind? Like if you're on this call, like where does intentionality show up for you?
The other thing I think secretly, my success has come from constantly searching out people who I want to be like when I grow up, and then executing super fast. Like, I think if that's the one thing I probably get credit for, it's being a really good implementer or executor. Um, so all of a sudden I've got a team leader at Keller Williams that was selling 300, 400 houses a year in Michigan before she became a team leader. And I said, "Hey, I want to get better at this. What I need to do?" And she go work on this, go do this. And I literally come back in a couple of days and go, "Okay, I did that. Now what? Okay, I did that. Now what?" Like when I find somebody that I can hold up as a model or a champion, then I don't question what they tell me to do. I think that's the biggest secret that I've had in my career.
Yeah, you actually you do it. And a lot of times, right? Like we like people, we want to be in the circles, right? Like I mean, the Adelina from 15 years ago wanted to be in those good circles, right? But to stay in those circles and to be relevant in those circles, you got to do it. Like if you say I'm going to close 50 homes this year, like you got to effing do it, because otherwise, like if you're not a
Yeah.
promise keeper to yourself, it's hard to
Some
get.
people some people can get in those rooms, they can't stay.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Congratulations on all of your success. And I'd love to say that it was something special that you did, and you're a special guy, you're a special friend, but like everything you did is duplicatable. Find your lane, go do it well. I'll get, I've got a couple of follow-up questions that I'll ask you offline, and then I'll share it with some of your stuff with everyone. Y'all, this was fun. It's always really good to see you.
Yeah, same here.
And we're really, really appreciative. Guys, we won't see you next week, but we will see you the week after with Brian Gubernick. Jay, where can we find you? Can we find you online or?
Yeah, you can find me online. I'm on Instagram. It's JWhiteNC. Actually,
Okay.
no, I'm sorry. I changed that a while back. It's JWhite JWG, J White Group.
Okay.
JWhite JWG. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, I am on TikTok. I have 3 videos on TikTok. So my 30 for 30 is doing a video every single day for 30 days. So we'll see what happens with that.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys here in Texas and beyond. We'll see you next time. You guys rock. Jay, thank you so much. And have a good rest of your week, guys.
Thank you guys for having me. Y'all keep killing it.
Thanks.